Welcome. Now we are going to talk about debugging in Eclipse. So debugging is basically if we want to execute the code in a controlled manner where we can see the effect of every line as it is executing, that step is called debugging. Now one thing I'll say here is debugging is a more important skill to have even than coding. So if we are better in debugging, we'll see by end of this talk that we can be a good coder if we are a good debugger. So we'll see that in a short while, but keep in mind like debugging is the most essential skill to have for any software engineer who is involved either in development work or testing activity. Fair, so we now know what is debugging. So what we will do is we want to see how this code is executing step by step. So this is the code we had written in the previous tutorial. So before even we start debugging, one more term we should understand, that is called a breakpoint. Now breakpoint is a point from which we can take control of execution and see it happening step by step. So in Eclipse, first thing I'll do is I'll set a breakpoint on line number 7 because we know this is where the execution begins. Always starting point of a Java code is the first line, which is not a comment and not a blank line in main. So in main we can see line number 7 is the first line where we have written some code. So first thing we will do is we'll set a breakpoint. So I go here in this blue section, do a double click, it puts a breakpoint. Now this breakpoint tells Eclipse that we want to take control of execution from this point onwards. So first thing we have to do is we have to set up a breakpoint on any line. Ideally I could have put a breakpoint on line number 10 as well. We'll see that in a short while. Okay, so line number 7 we have put the breakpoint. Next thing which we should do is we should start debugging the program. For debugging, we right click our file name, we go to debug as. Earlier we used run as. If I go and do run as, it will simply execute the code immediately and it will print the output. But if we do not run, if we go to debug as and if we say Java application, then we will see first thing is Eclipse is asking, do you want to change the perspective? So for debugging, Eclipse has special perspective and we will go with that. We go to yes and we can see a lot of new views have come over here, and this line is highlighted in green. It shows the execution is stuck at this point. Right now it is waiting for us to give the next instruction what Eclipse should do. Now from here what we want to do is we want to go line by line and we want to see the effect of every line. So when we are here, we want to tell to Eclipse, hey Eclipse, run this line and move to line number 8. How do we do that is there is a command called step over. So if I go to here, shortcut, this is step over, keyboard shortcut for that is F6. So if I press that, we see green line comes to line number 8. So this line has just executed. Now when we execute this line, variable a will get the value 10, and that is what we can see in variables window here. So a has got a value 10, b is not yet there because that will come when we execute line number 8. So again I do F6 or I can hit this icon step over. Now when we hit that, b gets a value 20. So we can see a has 10, b has 20. Next what we are going to do is we are going to declare sum. We'll add a and b and we'll assign that value to sum. So 10 plus 20 will become 30, 30 will be assigned to sum. So let's go next, and you can see sum got a value 30. Now this line that we are running, it says system.out.println. So effect of executing this line will be it will print a message on console view. So if I execute this, let's say next, we can see the message sum is 30 is printed and we have reached the last line in the main function. And there what we can say, we can stop our debugging because we have reached the last line, we are done. So this debug perspective is specially organized in such a way that when we are debugging, we can look at all the variables, how their values are changing. So that is the key crux of understanding what debugging is. Now I can go back to my Java perspective by clicking on top right. I can remove breakpoint by double clicking the breakpoint again. So we put a breakpoint, we remove a breakpoint. Now if I put a breakpoint directly on line number 10, I do a double click, put a breakpoint, and then we start debugging. Debug as Java application. Okay, I'll ask it to remember my decision and say yes. So every time it will automatically switch to the debug perspective. Now we see we have directly reached line number 10 and the control is stopped over there. Line number 7 and 8 have been executed automatically because there was no breakpoint over there. That means whenever we are debugging, Eclipse stops at wherever it sees the breakpoint and it proceeds directly if there is no breakpoint stopping Eclipse to do so. So that is one more thing to keep in mind. Last thing is we can put as many breakpoints as we want. So I can put a breakpoint in line number 7, I can put at 10, I can put at 13. Right now what effect it will have, even if we have multiple breakpoints, if we go to debug as, so here we are at line number 7. Now I can control step by step, I can go, or second thing I can say is I want Eclipse to continue till the next breakpoint comes. I want to skip line number 8. So there we simply hit this button we call resume. Now resume means we are done. We want Eclipse to proceed with the execution till the next breakpoint hits, or if there is no breakpoint, Eclipse will completely execute our code and exit. So we run, we are onto the next breakpoint. Now again we run, we are onto the last breakpoint. Again we run and execution has completed. Okay, so now we have seen what is a breakpoint and what is step over. So that is all about debugging. So breakpoint we understood, Eclipse shortcut we have seen, step over is F6, which means execute current line and move to next line of code. Yeah, that is mainly debugging. Now we see the benefits of debugging. Why should one learn debugging? So first benefit is if our code is not working fine, if there is some problem with our code, we can debug to figure out where we are doing things wrong. Second and most important benefit of debugging is it's a great tool that helps us understand other people's code. If somebody else has shared code with us and we want to understand, let's say if that code is little bigger code and we want to understand what that code is doing, how it works, we can put a breakpoint in first line and we can start debugging from there. We can go line by line and that will help us understand the code. Now here I have an exercise which is a buggy code that I have got. So that will serve both the purposes for us. We are looking at another person's code, so we will understand the code. Second thing, that code is buggy, we also go and figure out where things are wrong and we fix it. So let's take a look at that exercise. Now what this exercise is doing is it has two variables. The goal is print them before swapping, swap their values. That means end result we want is A should have a value 20, B should have a value 10. So here we are swapping, and after swapping we are printing them again. And if I go and run it first without debugging, we right click, we run as Java application, and we see before swapping A was 10, B was 20, but after swapping A is 20 but B is not 10, B is 20. So this is the bug which we have to figure out where we are doing mistake in the code, and we'll also understand the code assuming this is written by someone else. So our starting point would be we can directly put the breakpoint at line number 9 because here we can easily understand this is just the assignment. Here we are printing and there is something wrong in this logic. So ideally if we have to debug we can start with line number 12, but I will go with line number 6 directly so that we can see step by step, and this gives us one exercise of debugging. Now let's right click here, let's go to debug as Java application, and we come to the Java perspective because I asked Eclipse to remember my choice that every time we are debugging automatically switch over to Java debug perspective. Now we are here, so we will go line by line. So I do step over, A has got value 10, we do another step over, B got value 20. Next we can see the output of this line has come, A is 10, B is 20. So far so good. In swapping here what we are doing is we are saying assign the value of B to A. So let's execute that line and see what effect will it have. Right now B is 20, A is 10. So when we say assign B to A means put the value 20 into A as well. So we go next. So this value has changed, and in Eclipse whenever the value of a variable changes it highlights that variable's value. or variable name. So we can see the highlighting of yellow has come, that is telling this variable value just changed. In next line what we are doing is we are assigning the value of a to b. Now if we notice, a already changed to 20, we are just copying 20 to b. So problem is in this line, when we were assigning b to a had a value 10 and that 10 value we have lost. So we have figured out the problem, because after the 10 is lost there is no way to get it back in execution. So this is where the bug is. So what we should do to fix the bug is, before assigning b to a, we should make a copy of a in some temporary variable. Or easy way to understand this is, just a moment. Yeah, easy way to understand this is, if we have a glass of water and a glass of milk and we have to exchange their contents, then what we will do is we will need a temporary glass. So this is our temporary glass. Our steps will be, first put water into temporary glass or put milk into temporary glass. Second step will be, in the water glass which is empty now, put milk. And third step will be, in milk glass put the temporary. So this is the logic for doing a swap. That is what we did wrong earlier. So take a in temporary, now a is empty, put b in a, now in b we put temporary, which backup we took. So we have fixed the code. Now let's start debugging again, and this time I will not put a breakpoint on line number 1, we will put a breakpoint directly at 12 and we will see the effect. So after putting the breakpoint, now you see in debug perspective there is no project or package explorer. So I can go to run menu, I can say debug, or F11 is the shortcut. So this is another way of starting debugging. Okay, so here we are at this line. A has value 10, B has 20. Let's go step by step. So I hit F6 now to move to the next line. So I have pressed F6 and we come to this line. Now we can see T got a value 10, that is backup of A. I do F6 again. Now A has changed to 20. Next F6. You see B has got value 10 and F6, we can see the swap has happened and the values have been printed. And now since we are at the last line, we can hit continue or resume. It will execute the code and exit. Let's move back to Java perspective, and we are done with our debugging exercise, and we served both the purposes. We have understood this code line by line, we could figure out where the problem is and we could fix it. And those are the two main reasons of learning debugging, and those are two benefits of knowing debugging. Well, that was it for this part. Thanks for watching. See you in the next part.